we have to recognize that there cannot be relationships unless there is commitment, unless there is loyalty, unless there is love, patience, and persistence. Cornell West. Bending Not Breaking. Season 3, Episode 15. The Boiling Rock, Part 2. And welcome back to another episode of Bending Not Breaking. I'm Sunshine Mayfield.
And I'm Ben Pruitt.
And we are excited to be here for another episode.
Always excited.
Part
so excited.
2 of what is a dual episode, if you will.
Ooh, the second part.
That is one of my favorite episodes of the series.
I'm a fan. It's really, there's so much in this episode. There's a lot.
We also have Max, who's tickling those dials, as always, making us sound all silky smooth.
He touches the dials like never during the recording.
He slightly nudges the dials every now and then to make
It's all
us
about
sound
the pre-work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lot
lots of pre-work.
setup. Yeah, it's a lot of setup. But this is a special episode, Ben.
I love special episodes. Tell me why.
So earlier this season, we had a guest.
Cameron.
Another guest.
Casper.
A different guest.
Marilyn.
Who has a very unique connection with Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, all the people that I said
And
have a unique connection.
Is a mental health professional.
Oh, wait. Lindsay.
And was on the show. Back again.
On
Cricket
the show.
Leigh
Cricket!
Alexander!
Hey guys!
Cricket!
Oh,
We're
what's
so
up?
glad you're back. This is so exciting.
Very excited. I can't wait. It's my dual debut here. I might have to go for a three-peat one of these days.
I think so. This should just be
man.
a recurring thing. We'll
I'm a
get you on
fan.
every season. We'll talk Korra later. We'll
I
talk
love it. I love it.
Because there's comics that heavily
Oh, man.
feature May.
May is like
throughout
prominent.
this is so. Yeah, you're more than welcome to come back whenever you want.
Thanks, guys.
But this is an episode that heavily features May.
Absolutely.
It does. Yeah.
Some of her best one-liners, some of
Yep.
her best oh snap moments.
Indeed.
And so we're happy to be talking about the Boiling Rock Part 2. We are doing this through a lens of loyalty,
Ooh.
which is very interesting to think about in the context of this episode. Let's talk a little bit about loyalty.
I think
Or-
before we dive into loyalty,
Yes.
we have a responsibility. And I think
Dewey.
it is your turn to do the synopsis of our show in the form of a 30-second recap.
Ben, oh my goodness, it's not. It's totally your turn because you have the odd episodes on recaps. And I
If
know this to be
you
true
were
because
loyal
you
to
did
me.
episode 5 the first time Cricket was on, and now it's episode 15, which is also your turn. You have
Whoa.
30 seconds to recap
Yeah,
the
but if you
episode.
were loyal
and
to
away
me-
we go.
So, oh my god, Hakoda is now a prisoner at the Boiling Rock, and so Sokka, Zuko, Suki, and Chitsang are like, oh my god, how do we get escape? Oh my god, but now we have to have Hakoda, and how do we get all escape? And so they escape because they create a riot. Chitsang creates a riot, actually. And so what happens is there are problems.
15 seconds.
For the four arrive, and then, Azula shows up, and then May and Ty Lee and Zuko. May's like, hey, Zuko, how dare you? And then Zuko traps her in a
5
prison
seconds.
cell. The plan teeters on the edge. May and Zuko fight, and May and Ty Lee
3,
defend
2,
from Azula.
1.
I did my best.
Yeah, we're all doing our best here.
Hey, this is a big episode. That was hard to do.
There's a lot that goes on in this episode, and a
There's
lot
so
for us
much.
to dissect through the lens of loyalty.
Yeah.
Cricket, I'm going to throw it to you.
Yes, please.
What is loyalty?
I
What
mean,
does it mean?
It's so great. Loyalty to me is like the kind of thing that you can't buy. It's almost like a great personality. Like you either have it or you don't. But you can earn loyalty. You can't buy it, which I kind of love. And the cool thing about loyalty, I always think, is like it's got honesty. It says that you're empathic to the other person, but you're so honest and so loyal that if it's something that might not even be good for you, you still do it. That's loyalty.
Which I think that's a wonderful kind of. I think we're going to be able to talk. We could probably talk on just loyalty itself for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
In the context of the show, it'll be really interesting as we get into it because what's the boundary for it? Where's the line where that loyalties we I think it gets pushed as this wonderful quality to have and something you want in your friends. You want people who are going to back you up. You want people who are going to be there to support you, and we view that as loyalty. But you kind of hit it at the end. Is there's moments where it becomes destructive and
Yeah,
just
it
like
can.
anything else or any other emotion where there's
It
positive
can.
attributes, but it
You're
can
right.
lead to negative.
It could bite you, right? It could bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when people say he's loyal to a fault, I'm like, ooh, okay, that's weird. Like then that's a fault. Why are we saying that's
Yeah.
great? Like we should be
Can
like,
I
well,
ask you
hold
more about
on.
that?
He should be careful of his personal boundaries, whoever he is.
Yeah, can I ask you more about that? I have a question. So with loyalty, I want to talk about the connotation of loyalty as well. So there's what we are perceived to be loyal, which is kind of what you're talking about. It's like, oh, you can't buy it. It's something you have to earn. But to me, it feels very transactional when it's used with that language. And so what I mean by that is like, for instance, when you speak of brand loyalty.
Yeah.
So like I am a loyal Apple user, for instance. I really like Apple. Apple is not sponsoring this, but I would gladly appreciate an Apple sponsorship. That being said, I like Apple. I like iPhone. I love my iPad. I use it heavily in my work, and I really am a fan of that.
Right.
But it becomes problematic for me when, in terms of like brand loyalty, what the brand then has power to do with that loyalty. And so for me, I question loyalty because to me it seems like it is a function, or not a function, but it is a tool that the powerful and privileged use to manipulate the people who are less so.
When you're talking about customer and brand loyalty, that is meant to manipulate us from our dollars.
Yeah, and another way to frame it is like, for instance, I worked with the Y for a long time, and it's not like I've said it before, and I have organizational loyalty to the Y, and what that has done is I think that's ultimately what led to my burnout with that, in that I felt pressure to support the brand over time while sacrificing my needs. And so I'm interested to talk about how loyalty is very subtly something that can really drain us of our life force, if you will.
Right, because then it leads
what are your thoughts on that?
It's almost like loyalty fatigue. So
yes,
right, so
that's a great
compassion fatigue, right? Same thing. It's like, okay, my compassion for this company and for their mission is so great that I put my own needs a little bit behind. And when you do a little bit behind for more than like 3 years, you're a lot behind. And you're like, how did I get here? Why do I suddenly hate these people? Maybe not the organization itself, but the people who work there. So I do think we can have loyalty fatigue. I think we can be like, gosh, maybe it isn't a two-way street with every friend that you're being loyal to, or your parent. Right? Like I have trouble with the parent things.
Absolutely.
I'm like, I'm supposed to be loyal to this man because he's my dad. But then I'm like, but why? Just based on that? Like that doesn't make sense. Family, they have to do as much work to earn it as any person should.
Yes. So I think we're going to see that in this episode.
We
right?
absolutely will. Because I love the point that you make, that if you give up a little bit of your time, or you get a little bit behind on your personal needs over, each week, right? Like let's put it in the context of a work. I'm giving up a little bit of my needs each week, and how after 52 weeks of a year, you've become 52 more parts behind where you should be emotionally, physically, rest-wise. And that's a really important point to kind of highlight, because I think my perception is the expectation of loyalty is when someone asks me to be loyal in a certain moment, in a certain time, that I'm expecting some form of like, I'm going to do this, but I also know that you're going to take care of me later, even if I'm sacrificing a little bit right now.
That's interesting.
And so when that taking care of never comes,
I think
so
that's
you
really
keep score on your loyalty. You have a scorecard,
which is not what you want to do with a friendship.
No.
There's so much literature on how keeping score. I think who's the guy? There's a guy who does a lot of marriage work, and like that's
John
his deal.
Gottman?
I think it's Yes, there
Yeah.
it is, Don Gottman. Like his whole thing is when people are keeping score, that is a telltale sign of a failed marriage coming.
Exactly. But it's true. It's like giving a gift, right? Even to the homeless guy, right? I give him $5. Someone will be like, "Well, that's what are you doing? Like he's gonna spend that on booze." I'm like, I don't really care. I could care less. It made me feel a certain way to give him the damn $5, and it isn't up to me how he spends it. And it's the same with loyalty. I feel like it should be given freely without a transaction attached. But that takes trust and vulnerability in your friendships.
Well, I almost feel like loyalty is this a similar concept, and I'm gonna butcher this analogy, and I'm prepping myself to say it in the best way possible. This idea of not needing to say "I promise" to things, because when you have to say "I promise," it means there's a lack of trust.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, that's
And
true.
so I feel like when you have to call something loyalty, it's almost an equivalent exchange of that, where it's if you have to call it like I need you to be loyal, it means there's an absence of trust. It means that there's an absence.
That is so interesting.
Of those. That's kind of the way that I view it sometimes.
And that's the first and foundational dysfunction of a team, according to Patrick Lencioni. Is
that's
absence of trust.
interesting. Is that one? And also in a relationship, like in a love relationship, I remember I had a long-term boyfriend be like, when we ended things, he was like, "You're just such a great girl. I don't know what my problem is. You're so loyal." And I remember being like, "Ew, like a dog." Like, you're disgusting. I was like, I'm sorry. So I just like run to the door every day, like, "Hi, I'm so glad you're home." Like, it just freaked me out. I was like, ew. I think they meant it as a compliment, right? But what does that mean? I'm loyal. What? Loyal?
Well,
as if I've like had to stick with you. It was just so weird.
Yeah, I think loyalty is really interesting because I think we are going to see that in the relationships on this episode because we're going to get there really soon. But when loyalty is the dominant trait, we have to really consider what one is being loyal to. So, am I being loyal to this relationship? Am I being loyal to this person? Am I being loyal to their safety? What are we being loyal to?
Yeah, and there's a fine line between loyalty and codependence.
Yes, and so what we see with Azula, let's be real. We're gonna go straight
let's
for
just
the
jump
moment.
on in. Let's go for that moment.
Yeah, let's go for the moment here. This is what we're really all like subtly hinting at, right? So we see May defy Azula.
Yeah, we do. It's awesome.
Yes,
she does. And it's like a boss moment, right? It's totally awesome. And it's really cool because Azula comes up to her and says, like, "What were you thinking?"
Yeah.
And you know the line better than I do, but essentially
says,
it comes down.
I guess you don't know people as well as you think you do. You miscalculated. I love Zuko more than I fear you.
That's the one.
What a moment. And for me, you see the physical hurt in Azula in the animation at that moment.
It was animated so well.
And I think it's easy to kind of say, well, like, Azula thought she was loyal, and that really threw her for a loop. But I also think if Azula kind of feels like loyalty and love are intertwined, and so that moment acts as like a
double.
You don't love me.
Yeah.
Like it hits double as hard.
Don't you think we all do that? Like when somebody doesn't do what we've asked, like he didn't take the garbage out. I asked him 3 days in a row. He doesn't love me. Like it's a simple, it's a childlike thing.
It's the stories we tell ourselves,
yes,
right?
Because when you get older,
am telling
you're
myself
like,
a story.
He loves me. That's nothing to do with that. But it's a basic need, and Azula lives in those needs, in those basic.
I think she's grown up seeing loyalty as a function of what she has been equating to love, because that's probably all she's been getting from Ozai, right? Yeah. Hey, you're good at this. You're good at this.
It's probably what she's showing Ozai.
And it's what she's showing him as her love language, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's how I show you I love you.
Yeah.
And now she is there's this enmeshment where now it's a conflated concept of what love is. And I think that's really dangerous. And so I have a question for you. That just brings up a question.
Yeah.
So how do we combat enmeshment in the sense of when we are telling ourselves story about what love is, how do we get out of that? right?
Well,
Because Azula comes
enmeshment,
up to a brick wall.
yeah,
Right?
enmeshment is huge. I mean, I have a whole, PowerPoint for people on the difference between caring and enmeshing. And it's so different. And the difference is that one of them you're sacrificing yourself and one of them you're not, and you have boundaries. But people are terrified to set boundaries because they think people won't,
Yes.
quote, like me, or people will think I'm a, quote, or someone will think I'm, quote, a mean girl. It's like, what? No, those are fake, made up, like American concepts. You just be a person and be like, hey, I don't really like that. How about we go this? It's like really simple, but women especially are terrified to set boundaries. So they enmesh, I think, probably far more than men do in helping professions as teachers, therapists. I mean, you guys know, right? Camp counselors. I mean, that must be,
Yeah.
how do you
I think
not go there with kids or, with people that need you? It's so hard.
well, it's something that I struggled with for a long time. Frankly, that has been
Yeah.
one of my struggles, and learning to set boundaries to make it so that I don't do that has been really, really challenging.
Yeah, and if you like your day's over and you go to wherever you go, your cabin or your house or wherever, and you're still thinking about them into your time, which is like your real estate, then oh, okay, I'm giving a little bit too much of my heart or work or detail or worry to them, and they will be just fine without my worry. They will be just fine without my care. And even those that are homeless and that literally can't do anything, it's still not your responsibility to save them. So it's really
Yes.
hard, but that's the way to become
Well,
unenmeshed, is to
tell
pay
me about
attention,
that.
which you're doing.
So it sounds like this is a bold saying. Bear with me, but it sounds like there's a hint of arrogance when it comes to enmeshment, in the sense that
Could be, yeah. Like
I'm the only one who can do this, in that narrative that we say of like, I'm the only one who knows that this is going wrong.
I'm the only one that
who's
can
willing
save
to do
her.
something. Exactly.
Yeah,
And it
I
seems
love
like
that one. It's like, oh, honey, but it isn't your job. Well, first of all, you're being paid for a job, right? So this isn't just a friend. Let's say it's a person you work with. That's easier because you can be like, all right, your job doesn't say you're saving people's lives. You're not a brain surgeon. You're not an exorcist. Like, this is what you do over here. But if it's your friend or your mom, like, that's harder because it's like, if I don't help my mom pay her rent, like, she's literally going to be on this, she's literally going to be on my couch. That's like, and you can see I'm getting all like dysregulated and panicky, and I have goosebumps and I'm hot, like I'm red. And so I'm turning into like a weird version of myself. And then I fall into the fact that I'm the only one. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm one of who can I connect her with that are natural resources? People like that, they're like, I'm it. Well, really? Let's just have somebody take a look. What about the Y down the street? What about Loaves and Fishes if she needs food? What about, let's take her to Disability Network or a disability place because she does have that eye disease. I mean, this is the stuff when
these are those protective factors we talked about last time you were on our episode,
yeah, but you
right?
need that friend or like, husband or wife or somebody to be like, bro, I love that you care this much. It is a beautiful quality. So because I don't want it to kill you and kill that part of you, let's chill and write down, let's brainstorm every crazy resource we can think of. And it gives you autonomy, it gives you efficacy, agency over what you're doing and helping them. And if it is a parent, I mean, that's just harder because you have to be like, sorry, mom, you can't stay at my house, even though you're about to be homeless. But here's some stuff we can do.
Okay. Yes. What can we do? Sorry, I was going to cut you off to attach. So, well, because I want to bring in another segment, even as we kind of get into tangibles of things we can do. Because what's the difference between doing, recognizing that it's not my place to always help, and then you balance that out with, was it Sokka's job to save Hakoda and get him out of the prison?
Ooh, good one.
And so, where's that line of, because if Sokka hadn't have done that, Hakoda might still be there. Well, and or maybe
I think it would depend on Sokka's inside capability. Like, how full is his tank, right? So it's like each of us have a different tank and a different heart and a different, and some people have smaller tanks and they don't have that capability and they have a lot of anxiety. And then someone like Sokka, who's like this kind of goofy, like he's a ne'er-do-well, like he's he's whimsical. So he's probably got a fuller tank than other people because he's, what's the word? I don't want to say not. I don't want to say he's not an intellectual, but he's not. He's a lighter. He's he's got humor and I think he just wants to do well. He just wants to make people happy, right? So he's probably got a pretty big tank, and I don't know that he'd get upset or notice if people weren't like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." Like, I don't know if it would hurt him the way it would someone else, Azula.
I think that Sokka, in this moment, I think you're right. His tank has been replenished over the past several episodes, but like if you go back to episode 4 with Sokka's master, he was down.
That's true.
Right? So I don't know that
so
if
he
that
was
moment,
resilient.
he would have had the capacity, right? And so I think that seeing people have their ups and downs is really important in acknowledging the uniqueness of our tanks. And my tank might be small, it might be empty, it might be large, it might be full. And it just recognizing that every person is different and every tank is different and every moment with regard to said tank is different.
Yeah. And my tank is different for each person, it might even be, which is sad, but true.
When it also seems that boundary, like where the boundary line is, as we talk about loyalty, May hits a boundary that she says, this is crossing my boundary and I can't take it anymore. And so her behavior changed.
Yeah.
Ty Lee hits a similar boundary. But it's also, it seems as if depending on your current mental state, where you're at currently, your boundary levels can change from where they once were and where they are. There might be some days where here's my line, and this is where we're not going to cross today. And tomorrow, that might be a little bit different.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then there might be some boundaries that are like all the time, never
cross this one. Yeah, it's
But then
true.
other boundaries can shift and change. And I think that's important to recognize that like people ebb and flow. And boundaries shift and change, and what you're capable of doing one day is going to be different than what you're capable of doing on the other day.
That's like
that's
the best
okay.
way to look at humanity right there, because then we're very like, we can't assume anything. It would be wrong. We have to be like, hi, what's your story? How you doing today? What can I do? What do you need? Like that was what we should be doing with everybody, but we really don't. But it's that window of tolerance, right? So sometimes my window is so effing small. I'm like, don't come in this kitchen. I can't look at a human. Like, I'll say that.
Yeah.
And people are like, holy crap.
That's me too.
But I'll say it's not you. I just don't want to see a person, right? Or my window's so big and I'm like, oh my God, I made cupcakes. How was school? Like, I want to know. And so that might confuse a child or a husband, which I'm sure it does, but it's me taking care of me, And so I feel like I can never apologize for that. I can apologize that it hurt them, but I can't apologize for the behavior.
Here. Can we touch on Ty Lee a little bit further?
Because
I want to touch on like what was the moment that did it for Ty Lee, and I'm curious because on the show, I'm curious because on the show what we see is May defies Azula, and then only when Azula attacks May do we see Ty Lee intervene. Yeah. And I wonder if Ty Lee changed her mind when she saw May defying Azula, or was it when Azula attacked?
Yeah, it's like, because I could see it being both, right? I could see it be like, whoa, my like super badass friend is going in a different direction. And I could also see her be like, okay, guys, physical violence is totally not necessary. You know what I mean? I don't know which one it is or was. I think both are great conceptualizations of it.
I do want to highlight like, how tough it has to be to see May make the decision. You see that a consequence is going to happen, and you still choose to then act, knowing that consequences are likely. I think that just makes that decision that much harder.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and
so
I love that fight. That's hilarious. Where she's like, and then the guards are like, "What do you want with them?" And she's like, I just never want to see their faces again. Like that's so. It's almost better like than go kill them.
Well, because she miscalculated twice.
Yeah.
Like it happened twice that
she's not good at
had
math.
to feel that embarrassment and shame, right? So yeah,
Shame. That's
a
the
tough
word.
moment. Shame. There's so much shame in that moment for her
Oh.
because she feels like she's been bested, she's been defeated, and she didn't see it coming, which is something that she always
And talk
really
about
prides herself
loyalty.
in.
I mean, May is saying, I love this man, even though he wrote me a Dear John letter. Like, you
That's
got to
so
be
true.
kidding, bro. I'd be like, you out. But I like it.
Well,
She's like,
it's interesting.
I'm here for you.
how-
I'm your ride or die bitch. Like, it's kind of great.
It's interesting how that loyalty is a shifting. So if we think of loyalty as as a North Star, I'm loyal to my North Star, right? And for a while, Azula was May's, right? But what happened is her love for Zuko grew and grew and grew, and thus became, this is clearly a metaphor, but became that North Star in a way. And so now the magnetic pull towards that is stronger than the one towards Azula.
Oh, I love that.
And that
That's
gives
so
her the strength,
romantic. It's perfect,
right? And,
though. It's like, it is a
and
pull.
so what I'm feeling is, what is the relationship between courage and loyalty, or rather courage and defying loyalty? Because I think May's defiance of Azula is a really courageous act.
Yeah.
Because not only because there's so much fear in regards to Azula, but also I think it's apparent in how Ty Lee responds to it, because courage is contagious. And so when May is able to stand up to Azula, I think ultimately that is what gives Ty Lee the courage to stand up to Azula.
I think you're probably
and so
right. Yeah.
Right? And so I think that there's so much there.
It's contagious. I love that you said that. It's so true. And I mean, gosh, look at what's happening in our world, right? And all these peaceful protesters and civil unrest. And it's like, I don't know. It's a little terrifying. And so if somebody I knew said, hey, we're going to go to this protest, or hey, I'm going to say no to, this kind of rhetoric, I'd be way more like, okay, yeah, that's who I want to be. So yeah.
And I think that because in my head I'm thinking about like who's in those situations, who's loyal to what, and Ben kind of brought up the question earlier. What are these characters loyal to? Is it a person? Is it a thing? What is their North Star that we're talking about? An example of this that I wanted to kind of bring up was the guard that lets everyone out of the jail cell.
Right.
Because you could easily say that he's loyal to the warden. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I think he's loyal to the fear that is instilled by the warden, because the moment that he thinks that fear comes into play.
Yeah, because he's in a bad mood. He's like, oh, all right,
Yeah, the moment that that fear comes into play, that's what triggers him to open the door, even though the warden wasn't the one that gave the commands.
Exactly.
But the fear of the warden was what he was actually loyal to, not the warden himself. And so I think when we lead through fear, we tend to think that people are loyal to us because of the way that we're leading. The reality is they're loyal to that fear and not the individual person.
Absolutely right. And that's Hitler. That's, the world's craziest leaders, of which we have one. That's exactly right. So they're ruling by fear, and that's a different loyalty, just like that brand loyalty is different too. They're not what I would call true or altruistic loyalty, but yes, there's loyalty like that. Like, I'm sure the warden was psyched that all his people are terrified of him. But yeah, they're not really loyalty to a person.
Well, and what we're seeing is more of the strength of what loyalty to hope can bring when a moment of hope or a glimmer of hope is there. When Ty Lee sees a moment of hope, in the actions of May. When everyone sees the glimmer of hope by the way that Suki climbs the wall and
we've got to talk about her.
Runs up
Suki
like a
is
spider monkey.
Total amazing. Like, oh my goodness.
To just absolutely take down everyone. You see these when this moment of hope kind of comes around, that these characters kind of glean a little bit more loyal to that, and allows. I just think there's power in that.
I think you're right. And the whole episode has you kind of on edge until then. So you don't really get a chance to settle until that hope. You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen?
That's
until
true.
that point. So you're right. I wonder, obviously the writers are pretty smart people. So they probably did that on purpose, but it's great viewing.
So I want to talk about Suki for a little bit and dive into that a little bit more. But also in her relationship with Sokka and Zuko. And so what I think is really fascinating is, and I saw this on a Facebook post and I've been compelled to talk about it, was when they're on the gondola and Azula and Ty Lee are coming up to fight them, they arrange themselves back to back. So Zuko and Sokka are facing Azula, and Suki is facing Ty Lee. And they are fighting at each other's backs. So they, one, are literally having their backs, right? And so there's the trust. There is so much trust and loyalty to Sokka and Zuko, who frankly, Suki doesn't have a relationship yet, but she is so loyal to Sokka that she's willing to trust him in this moment and put her back to him in this fight.
That's cool. I love that you noticed that. That's incredible.
And so it's fascinating because they also trust so much in Suki's fighting capacity, which she clearly just demonstrated that she can dominate, but that she can take down Ty Lee. And so, similarly, Suki has so much loyalty for the other two that they can defend against Azula. And I just think that's really a beautiful look at what loyalty can do.
I agree. What a well thought out idea. I agree. I mean, she's a Kyoshi, I guess, badass, because she has like better combat skills than most people. You know what I mean? And I think that does say a lot. And I wish she was in more. I do wish Suki was in more episodes.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and it's interesting because, Ben, you just kind of touched on it. Suki is trusting Zuko because of her loyalty to Sokka. May is ideally, or what we think to see is betraying, I don't know if betrayal is the right word, Azula because of her trust in Zuko and her loyalty to Zuko. And so that we see that these relationships with each other can be powerful. Where's the line where that can become a negative? When does that become a blind trust, even when someone's acting outside of their values, even when someone's doing the wrong thing? At what point do you need to kind of sever ties because of that? There's a line or a boundary.
That's a great question. Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's so blind. I love these. There's blind loyalty, right? Blind trust. So, wow, that's major trust. Like, I can't think of one. Okay, my husband. I can't think of anybody on the planet that I would have blind loyalty to. That's just like a terrifying concept. But I also have great boundaries. So I think like when I was younger and I was way more codependent, I was like, they need me. I need to jump in and get this done for them. I'm the only one. They asked me, right? That arrogance piece and it's foolishness. But then I would have thought, I'm so loyal. I'm the loyalist of all the friends. And I would have totally sacrificed myself, which is not great. So I do think there could be, a scary hazard of being too loyal.
I think you just highlighted something for me. And I think it answers the question in a way. I think that if you catch yourself telling yourself the story that I care more for people than other people care about me, or I think if that's a story you're telling, I think that's a sign that you need to check yourself.
I agree.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yes, you're gonna wreck yourself. Yeah.
And
I love how you keep saying the story. It's really true. It's like your own narrative. And I love that because it says it isn't how you were born, it's how you've assigned a story.
Here.
Which means it's you or me, or that means we can change it.
Yeah. Brene Brown is I devour her work, so
that's awesome. No, I love it. I think it's really true.
Max just asked who that was, just for everybody's future reference. But yeah,
Brene Brown fan club. I get it.
So to highlight, almost I'm gonna try to put everything into a nice little bubble of things that we kind of covered so much around loyalty, even through these characters. Understanding and awareness of your own capacity is going to allow you to help serve people better, but not do that in a way that's destructive.
Yeah.
Having your own boundaries, that when you are saying that you are trusting and you are supportive and you are quote unquote loyal to someone, still having boundaries is important, because even if you're loyal to someone, if they're loyal back, they're not going to ask you to push those boundaries.
You're
They're
right.
not going to ask you to cross those boundaries. And so you shouldn't be expected to cross your own moral boundaries, time boundaries, whatever you've got set for the sake of loyalty. And I think that someone loyal back isn't going to do that. Based off of our conversations, that's kind of what I'm pulling out
I think
of
the
that.
only thing I would add is also the way you can identify things is what are the red flags that help you identify that you're crossing your boundary, right?
Yeah.
Or that you're being asked to cross a boundary. What are the red flags? What are the stories that you tell that give you that flag?
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. I think those are brilliant points. I just
Stop it.
No, I agree with you, completely. And as May said, to miscalculate. That means if she said you miscalculated, that means she strategically knew how Azula was going to feel, and I think that means she understood.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like she knew it wasn't some whimsical. I mean, it was whimsical because she was like, okay, I'm doing it. It was impulsive.
Well,
but I feel like
what I love about it,
yeah, go ahead.
To prove your point, to prove that she wasn't impulsive, like the guard, like, what are you doing? She said, saving the jerk who dumped me.
Yeah, the
right?
best line.
It's like she's going into it knowing that she's going to stop this from happening. And I think that she sees that it's Azula and she's like, well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I know. And you know what I think her loyalty is? It's not Zuko. It's to herself.
Ugh. I
don't think it's Zuko. I think she's like, whatevs, he might come back. I don't care. I'm doing my thing.
That's my takeaway, y'all.
But I think, what a beautiful moment to highlight. You have to act inside of your values.
Yes.
Regardless of what the outcome may be. And I think that almost that kind of gets brought up when, the question earlier of why are you giving money to someone who's sitting on the streets when they could go use it for multiple of things is, I'm going to act inside of my values, and my values say that I need to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to trust that someone is going to act inside their values when they act. And that's kind of where she's at is I'm going, and I love that you push back that it's not loyalty to Zuko, she's acting inside of her own values.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, it's just the way, and I do that in life, and I'll be like, well, I don't know what's going to happen with this situation, but I did what I needed to do, and it sucks, and you lose family members, and people judge you, and it's tough. But that's just the person I want to be, and so it's like, okay, that's the person I want to be. I want to model that to people around me. I want to be like, I don't care if a family member hates me forever because of this, whatever it is, and it'll happen to all of us.
It really reminds me of Maya Angelou's quote on belonging. She says, I belong every place. I belong no place. I belong to myself.
Oh, it's
and
gorgeous.
I think that it's the same thing with loyalty. Like I am loyal to every place. I am loyal to no place, and I'm loyal to myself.
That's beautiful.
And I think that you are going to be your best self when you are loyal to you.
And acting within your values. That's exactly right.
And setting boundaries that help you adhere to those boundaries, or setting boundaries that help you adhere to those values, right?
Yeah, like if you look at top values, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember yours or know yours, but mine has bravery, positivity, and humor. Like humor is not top 2 or 3 for most people, but that is that is like how I live. That I wouldn't be able to live if I couldn't make fun of things, or I couldn't, I just take the seriousness out. I couldn't. And so to me, that's a big value. Now, being an actor, beautiful. That fits in there great, but being a therapist, maybe not. Like, I'm not sure. I do use humor with my clients, but it's, I have to be careful, right? I have to be smart about it. But bravery means I can say to people, hey, you can pay me and see me for a year, or I can just tell you what's wrong right now, and you can just figure it out. Like, it's really simple. Yeah. And that's bravery, because people usually, if they come to a therapist, they might want to stay for a long time, or they may not want to really hear the hard stuff. Yeah. But I hopefully make it comfortable enough that I can say the hard stuff so I can meet my own value.
I love it.
Absolutely. What are other big moments in this show that we saw loyalty pop up?
I thought, Sokka and his dad when his dad was like, no prison in the world can hold us to, water geniuses. I was like, that's awesome. Like, I mean, that's family loyalty, but I thought it was super adorable. And like, I think that when a parent like that says something like that, it makes you, speaking of Maya Angelou, feel belonged to them. And that is huge. That attachment piece and feeling like you belong to a tribe, whether it's friends, family, coworkers. I think tribe, like psychology is important. It's important to me. Some people not so much if they're introverts, but I loved that moment.
It's really beautiful. I mean, I long for a relationship like that with anyone, not just family, but like with anyone that can just really build on the comparisons that we share, build on the things that we share and the things that we are united with. And so whether that's, we both like Avatar: The Last Airbender, or we both eat the same foods, or like whatever those similarities are, if you can use that to build bridges, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Absolutely. Let's build more bridges.
Let's build more bridges. Well, it's random as I hate driving on bridges, but they still need to be they still need to be built, don't they?
Yeah.
And of course I loved when May says you could have at least looked me in the eye when you ripped out my heart. Like, that's so great. It's so like and she never says stuff that like specific, really. Like, I kind of loved it. And I understand why, but it was just a cool moment.
I feel like that's her setting a boundary with Zuko, right?
Yeah.
That's her saying, hey, in the future, here's my boundary. You need to do this in person. If you're going to have
tough conversations, you got to do it face to face.
Yeah, like you can't. It's like my thing with people hanging up. Like to me, I literally will lose it. Like, who hangs up on people? I just think that's like a pet peeve of mine. But same kind of thing, the Dear John letter, right? The letter that I think she was just like, oh, bro, that was low. Like, that was not acceptable in my value system.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also want to highlight Jin Sang, who gets played as like kind of a dum-dum, like kind of a not intelligent individual, but clearly can plan and be strategic with the way that he said, like, I can call out this guard by saying that there's a kind of a snake in the grass and someone who's helped plan this event.
Yeah.
And we
questioned his loyalty. Like, it was built up.
Right.
It was set up for us to question his loyalty, right?
But you also understand that, like, there's so like where's the line again? Because if someone's getting beaten and tortured and all of this is happening to him, like, can you really fault someone for finally breaking? Is that something that you really can? And I don't know what the answer is to that. I also don't know, like, we don't know why he's in there. And he seems like a pleasant guy. I love the way that he gets off the boat at the end and was like, I'm new, and like waves at everyone.
I think one of the things that makes that problematic is that we see him get put into not only solitary confinement, but solitary confinement that also freezes him. Right. That is a form of torture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think saying what he can and cannot do to the guard that did that to him, not for good reason, but out of spite. I'm not in a place where I can say whether that's good or bad.
Yeah.
Same.
That type of judgment.
Yeah. Like, I cannot pass judgment on that.
No, me
right?
too.
That's not my place.
I can't.
So I can say that putting someone in, like, forcing them to get beaten and tortured is not okay. And it happened both ways. But I can't fault Chit Sang for making that decision. No.
I think, again, and those are moments where, like, you act inside of your value system.
Yeah.
And let that be your compass. And understand when people tell you they've gone through pain or the experiences that are difficult, that you've got to accept that for truth. And we've talked about that before on the show, where challenge your own narratives, challenge your stories. Because you need to be self-aware and keep that in check. Challenge those, and also you have to believe when people share their stories with you.
Here.
And so it's a paradox, which is, you want it to be black and white, and it's not.
It's not.
It's a paradox, and so it's an interesting combination in own leadership and development that's something that you might have to navigate, but you have to navigate it. But I enjoy
Good
his
point.
character. I think he brings humor. I love that he's like, oh, you want a prison riot?
I know that was the
Riot.
best. They're all like, "How do we get a riot?" That's awesome. It made me want
Well,
a
also-
riot. Like I was like, "Yeah,
I'm in. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Can I
It's like a mosh
riot
pit.
It's like a
about?
mosh
I viewed
pit,
it like
yeah.
a mosh pit at a concert. You're just like, yeah, everyone chooses to be a part of this. It seems
Yeah,
fun.
I wanted, and maybe it's because of the world right now, but I definitely, if I could do it safely, would want to be part of a riot. It just sounds like a great way to, let off anger and steam. And yeah, I mean, mosh pits are great. Although I'm also short that I would probably die in a mosh pit. So I will stay away from those. I'll be crushed.
Anything else? What have we missed in the episode regarding loyalty?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there were so many good points. There was a lot of action though in this one. Like, so you know what I mean? There were some great bits, but there was a ton of action, and so maybe that makes it harder for us to highlight more points.
I mean, there were a lot. I think we did great. I don't know about you, but I thought this was a really great episode
I've got
so far.
one more question.
Yeah.
What is the warden's loyalty?
Ooh,
What is the warden loyal to?
Oh,
And
gosh.
what is the most
reputation
What is
is
the
my
most
gut instinct.
generous
Yes.
assumption that we can give of that?
I
man?
love that you said the reputation. I do think it's himself, but oh yeah, power, right? He's a power dude. He wants to be the biggest guy with the coolest members only jacket, I don't know. He wants to be.
Because he was willing to go into the boiling water
Yeah.
if that meant that his record was perfect.
Yep.
And I'm curious
honor.
as to what drives
For him,
that,
that's
because-
honor, and that would be his
Fascinating.
loyalty.
I just wrote a paper on honor for my divinity school
Ooh.
assignment, and it was comparing
If you didn't make at least one Zuko joke
That's-
in that paper, then you had a missed opportunity.
That's
and
rough,
I would
buddy.
grade it at least a C. Yeah.
I couldn't. It was about the Iliad and
Oh.
Achilles,
Cool.
and comparing that to Polycarp, who is a famous martyr. And so the grounds of
Ooh.
the question was, what are the grounds that make it acceptable to lay down one's life?
Oh wow, that's
and-
fascinating.
And in ancient Greek culture, honor is the deal. You do everything for honor and
You would
glory.
just like you'd rather
Um,
die than be dishonored.
And so that's a really interesting parallel. I wanted to
Well,
bring that
especially
in.
because what's the narrative you have to tell yourself to see your behaviors in that light when we're seeing them in a very completely different light, right?
Yeah.
The warden is set up for us to be the villain. It seems very clear that to him, he is the hero in his own story.
Yeah.
Like he feels justified, and that's scary when that's a narrative one can tell themselves when also acting.
Sure,
out of
really
fear and cruelty.
depraved, right? Yeah, you could be completely insane and have that ideology. I think it's tough in our world because there's not a lot of world order anymore. Like there's not a lot of, it's kind of a free for all, and in that it's absolutely terrifying. Whereas, in the 50s, which also had its issues, and it was horrible for women and people of color, it was almost easier to live in a certain way because there was a definite, almost like a checklist, or you go up the ladder. Like there were all these structures, and we just have nothing now. And even though I'm glad that we have all of this incredible, civil liberties, and I'm a huge fan of Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ plus and all of that.
Hear, hear.
mean, God, yes, but I'm also like, wow, where do we go? Where do we go from here? It's kind of a big old
That's why I'm
question.
going to school.
I know, and I'm so
Trying to
glad you
figure it out.
are. I hope you figured out for all of us, because
Yeah, me too.
honestly,
That'd be great,
order
wouldn't it?
helps me. I mean, church gives it to me, like my pastor, I like it from him, but I like it from books, or I like it from, Netflix on occasion.
Yeah.
But
like
I just,
anything and everything, right?
yeah, I just feel like I need some order to hold on to.
Sounds like a great time and a good stopping point
Take a
for
little
us
break.
to take a little break. And we're
Great.
going to come back to our devotion,
Yes.
Awesome.
and it'll be wonderful.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We're glad you're here. We missed you. I've been so fortunate to be in your presence, in your earbuds, and also we're just so thankful that Cricket is still here with us. She's going to join us for our devotion, and today we are talking about the lens that we've been talking about all episode, which is loyalty, but we're going to talk about it through the element of water. So, with that in mind, Sunshine is going to kick us off. Sunshine, when you think about water and loyalty, what is an intention that you want to set for the coming week?
I think for me, the conversation around capacity was really important, and I really latched on to that earlier this episode. And so for me, it's kind of having an awareness of, on a day-to-day basis, what is my capacity, and kind of being intentional about thinking of that each morning, so that I can kind of progress through my day in the best way. So how much can my pitcher really hold? How much water can my pitcher really hold on a day-to-day basis? And how do I navigate that and be okay with it? And I think that's going to be the tough part. It's coming to terms each day of saying, like, I'm not feeling as good today. I don't think I can accomplish as much. And that's okay. Because I'm also a person who sometimes, like, I'll have my to-do list, and if I don't cross it off, then, like, I feel unproductive.
Totally.
And I think, but I think there's days where I realize, like, I wrote this to-do list for the week, or like, a week ahead of time, thinking I could knock out these 8 things on Tuesday, and I woke up on Tuesday, and I just don't feel good about the day, and my capacity is a little bit lower, and so I only get 3 things done, and I think that it's making sure that I'm okay with that. I'm enough. That doesn't mean I'm not good enough. That doesn't mean that I'm not.
Self-compassion. That is the key.
And I think that's what my plan is for the week.
That's
awesome.
really beautiful for me right now, because you should see my to-do list.
You know what?
Class.
And I love the
It's
to-do list
obscene.
thing. And what I do is I get like 3 done, and I look at the other 5 and I reframe it. I just say, look what I get to do in the next couple days. And then I just put it down. I pretend in my brain.
You are better than I.
And I'll tell you it's a lie, but eventually I believe it. It's really weird. Try it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, so that's my plan.
So for me, before we move on, I think that reminds me really importantly about a Brene Brown podcast, Unlocking Us. She does an episode on like 50-50 parenting. Anyway, it talks about like percentages. Oftentimes we go in assuming that we're at 100%, and I come home from a hard day, assume the other person's at 100% and say, hey, you got this? And they're like, no, I'm at 20%. I can't handle this right now.
Yes.
So what happens if we're not at 100%? So if I'm at 20 and you're at 20, that's 60% that's missing.
Yeah.
And so
the way you worded that, I thought your math was very wrong for a second. I thought you were going to say that, like, you're 20, I'm 20, that's 60%, and then I'm glad you threw in the that's missing part, because I was like, that math doesn't anyways, continue.
Yeah, so that's 60% that's missing. How do we accommodate for it? And so, like, having a plan with your partner or with your whomever you're working with, your team, to saying, hey, I'm operating at 20, where are you? Oh, you can pick up my slack? That's awesome today. I will work it in the future when I'm at 80 and you're at 20 to pick up yours. Or vice versa. And, okay, if we're in 40-40, or whatever, if we're less than 100, what are we going to do to set those boundaries?
What you do,
so
you write your
that's
kid a
that
sorry
lined up.
note, and you just say, we suck. I'm so sorry. We're at 40.
But like metaphorically, kinda, you know? I like, anyway, that's just a thought. That's a really great episode if you want to get more diving into
Yes,
that
I
concept.
love that one. We'll do that.
So for me, loyalty and water. Loyalty strikes me as something that, but before our conversation, struck me as very solid. It is something that is or is not. And what I've learned is that loyalty requires a little bit more fluidity. It requires a little bit more, it needs to be malleable. It needs to be something that is not rigid. Because when it is rigid, we often are loyal to a fault. Right. And so for me, I'm going to do some meditating this week on what are the things that I am loyal to. And I want to intentionally pick one one thing that I'm loyal to, and then I want to set a boundary around it. That's my intention for this week. That's my goal. It's simple, but I'm going to meditate on one thing that I am loyal to. I'm going to set a boundary, and then I'm going to let myself kind of be a little bit more fluid with it instead of having this rigid loyalty. I want to be more fluid. And
That's
have a
awesome.
boundary that I can adhere to.
Love it.
So tell me about you, Cricket. When you think of loyalty through the lens of water, what comes up for you?
Well, I was thinking about being flexible, right? So I'm like, okay, I was born like super type A and was rigid person throughout my 20s. And then life, thank God, kicked my butt. And I learned to try to just go with the flow, which is so not my nature, but it's becoming my new nature. And I like it. I mean, it's so much easier. I have less anxiety, less conflict. I don't put as much care into things that maybe don't matter or other people's opinions. So I just want to be, when I think of water, and I tell all the people that I supervise, I'm like, be like water. And they're like, what? And I'm like, just be like water. Water moves. It moves a lot. It's not stagnant. It's fresh and it moves and it's cooling and that's how you should be as a clinician, because you have no idea what people are going to say or want from you. And then when you get home and you're a mom or you're a parent, it's like, so I think that's what I think of when I think about the water itself. And then loyalty through water would be the loyalty to me and my own needs and meeting them first. Even though I feel guilt and shame, I want to work this week on setting a boundary, maybe with my stepson, but without feeling the guilt or shame after. Like, I should do that because I'd be a better mom if, and it's like, but will I? And why am I doing it? I have to be like, oh, I'm doing it because if anybody asked, I can say I did it. That is not a good reason, at all. Like,
and that's a great red flag, right?
Yeah, and that's why I would do it. So I'm like, no, let's pretend I live alone on the universe. That is not something I would do. So I'm going to do what I want, which is set a boundary. I will do what's expected, but maybe not go above and beyond every second, because it takes a lot out of a person. So I think that's what I want to do this week is consider how I can be more flexible and roll like water, not get upset at little things, not take things personally, and then really identify a time with my stepson where I can set a boundary and let go of the guilt.
I am on board and I support your decision.
Thank you.
What an important thing to highlight, even in just kind of in this moment, because as kids are doing virtual schooling and as parents are navigating things that are just completely different.
It's pretty nuts.
There's yet to be, I'm guessing, there might be coming out with one soon, but there's yet to be how to be the perfect parent and teacher at the same time. like that book doesn't exist.
The Dummy's Guide to Homeschooling and COVID.
And so being able to give grace and kind of setting those boundaries and intentions and I'm working with a lot of kids right now who through their virtual schooling, and it is tough. And so give yourself grace. All the parents who listen,
oh, I love
we love
that.
You and give yourself
I love
grace.
that.
Hear.
Give yourself grace. It's true. We deserve so much more than we give ourselves. And I also try to think when I'm being hard on myself, I say, oh, what would I say to my best friend? And it's way nicer. So I'm like, hello, moron. Why don't you take that advice? So that's what I do. And then I'm like, oh, cool. I would give so much grace to my best friend, but I'm like a jackass with myself. So I'm like, no, I need to, if that's the little device I need to use, my psychological trick, then it's fine. And I end up being more graceful to myself.
Yeah, give yourself some gratitude, just like we're about to do
right now
with some characters right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go first.
Yep.
Because I want to.
Great.
That's how this is
That's how that's gonna work.
All right,
I really like that reason.
Yeah, me too. In this moment, I'm really okay with it. So I'm choosing to give gratitude to Ty Lee. And I think it's for that reason I stated earlier, just how tough it is to make the courageous decision in a moment where you see the punishment, the outcome, the consequence, and to choose what is right and to choose what is courageous in that moment. even when the consequence is right there looking you at the eye and has the ability to shoot blue fire in your face, she chooses it anyways. And I think that in part is based off of the courage that she gets from May, but to make that decision is still something she had to choose to do, and I'm just incredibly grateful that she did it.
Good one.
And so that's
Good one, Ty Lee.
To.
Whoop.
I love that. Cricket, do you want to go or do you want me to?
I'll go. I'm gonna give
right.
it to Kiyoshi Mama Suki.
She so deserves
because
gratitude.
I don't know, it just struck me like she didn't have to do any of that. Like I don't know. It struck me. She's not part of their like super tight friend crew, And I just love that she decided to go out on a limb. Obviously, she has talents in that area, so it's a gift for her. It's not look what I'm going to do for you, so you can do for me. It's actually sharing her gift, and her gift is gonna save these people. So I give it up to Suki, and I wish we could see more of her.
Hear, hear. Wow. I'm glad that you were grateful for her because I might have done it if you didn't.
But you can add to
Someone needs
it.
to be grateful
Yeah,
for Suki.
she's awesome.
So I'm gonna pick the star. I'm gonna pick May.
Wow.
And the reason I'm gonna pick May, I was not going to pick May originally, but after our conversation, I've just been thinking about it. Is that like how much courage it takes to be loyal to yourself, right? And May is a shining beacon of what it looks like at its most difficult, right? She struggled with this. She was mad at Zuko. She was mad at Azula. She's mad at the world that Zuko left, and she still makes the choice to be loyal to her, to do what she believes is right, even in the face of Azula's fear, in the face of that estranged relationship, in the face of not having Zuko next to her. It's just a really beautiful moment, and I am grateful for
I
everyone
love that.
who chooses courage. Yeah.
Good one.
It's a tough choice to make.
We picked all girls
so
this
hard.
time, didn't we?
All girls.
All girls.
That's
So
right.
courageous.
That's awesome.
What a great episode. Well, Cricket, thank you so much for coming back again.
Thank you. I
taking
love
time out of
hanging
your
out with
busy
you
scheduling day.
guys.
We will definitely have you back when we are trying to get to Korra season 1, and so
Okay, great idea.
If we do that, you are more than welcome to come on back and to throw some input in for some.
It
of the
is my
Legend of Korra.
pleasure. I'm a big fan of yours, and you guys are so woke and so interesting. And
Woo!
yeah, I just dig it. I just think it's always a great conversation. I wish we all lived closer and we could have big old dinner parties and just talk about big themes. And wouldn't that be great? I know.
That'd be awesome.
So I appreciate you guys. Thank you again.
Yeah, maybe somebody on the Patreon can do like a $3,000 donation
and
then
pay for us all
pay
to
for
have dinner together.
That'd be awesome.
Plane tickets, food, we'll all go on an all-inclusive vacation to Sandals, Jamaica.
Yes.
And we can travel again.
I've never been there. That sounds awesome.
I have
Me
no
either.
idea if it's a good thing or not.
It just sounds good.
Yeah, why not? So thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate the support that we've gotten over the past few months, especially with Avatar hitting Netflix, has been amazing. Follow us on BNB_pod at Twitter and Instagram.
Send us a voicemail.
Send us a voicemail to thearchive@gmail.com. Support us on Patreon if you want bonus content, want access to our private Facebook group, want episodes early. We have bonus episodes where Max chooses things that we talk about this way. And so we've got episodes on the last thing we talked about was The Terminal, the classic Steven Spielberg 2004 Tom Hanks joint, So we talk about that. And then you can get all that on Patreon by supporting there. So head over to patreon.com/BNB_pod. Cricket, where can they find all of your things that you've got on the
right.
interwebs?
They can find me on TikTok at Cricket Leigh, Leigh, or on Instagram. That's Cricket World, CRICKETWIRLD, because the O was taken. Who took that? And YouTube and everywhere else. So
Sweet.
Well, thanks for joining us on another
Thank
great
you so
episode.
much.
I'm Sunshine Mayfield.
And this has been Pruitt.
And this has been Bending Not Breaking. Thank you for listening.